The air conditioner in the Cebu hotel room hummed a low, steady note, fighting a losing battle against the afternoon heat clinging to the windows. I lay on my back, watching the ceiling fan slice the thick air. Beside me, Lyra was a still, perfect line, her dark hair fanned out across the white pillowcase. The scent of coconut and sweat, a smell I now associated with a profound sense of peace, hung between us. This was what real felt like. After years of hollow dates and transactional relationships back home, this was the antidote. It wasn't easy, it was earned. I'd spent weeks learning the delicate dance of her culture, the quiet respect, the patient pursuit, the understanding that her shyness wasn't a rejection, but a virtue. Every small victory was monumental. The first time she held my hand in public, her fingers trembling slightly in mine. The first time she'd cooked for me, a simple dish of adobo that tasted like the most exquisite meal of my life. The first time we made love, her hesitant, almost reverent touch felt like a confession. I rolled onto my side to watch her. Her eyes were closed, her breathing even. She was so young, but there was a seriousness to her that I found captivating. I saw it as a sign of her depth, a product of a life that hadn't been easy. I was giving her a respite from that, a safe harbor. My role, as I saw it, was to be her rock, the steady foreign man who could show her a different kind of life, one of security and genuine affection. Her phone, an older model with a cracked spider webbing across the corner, rested on the nightstand. It was her lifeline to her family, a constant stream of messages and calls from her mother and cousins back in their village. I respected it. It was part of the package, part of the duty and connection that I, frankly, admired. It was so different from the atomized West. Here, family was everything. She stirred, her eyelashes fluttering. A soft smile touched her lips before her eyes even opened. "Hi," she whispered, the word barely a puff of air. "Hi yourself," I said, tracing the curve of her shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded, pressing her face into my chest. "Very okay, just happy." It was the word she used often: happy, grateful, blessed. At first I'd been wary, conditioned to see such declarations as a prelude to a request. But with Lyra, it felt different. It felt pure. She never asked for anything, not directly. I would offer a new dress, a contribution for her mother's medicine, a nice dinner, and she would accept with a shy, almost guilty gratitude that made me want to give her the world. She shifted, pulling the sheet up to her chin. "I need a shower," she said, her voice muffled by the bedding. "Stay," I murmured, wanting to keep her in this quiet bubble with me forever. She giggled, a light, musical sound. "I'm sticky." She kissed my collarbone, a quick, firm press of her lips, and slid out of bed. The sudden absence of her warmth was a physical ache. As she padded to the bathroom, she grabbed her phone from the nightstand. It was a reflexive gesture, like grabbing a wallet or keys. In the bathroom, the hiss of the shower started. I lay there, content, listening to the water run. This was my life now, this quiet intimacy, this sense of purpose. I was a man who had found something true. The hum of the air conditioner, the distant sounds of traffic from the street below, the water running in the shower. It was the soundtrack to my own private paradise. A minute later, the bathroom door clicked open. Lyra poked her head out, her hair wrapped in a towel, her shoulders bare and glistening. "Babe," she said, her brow furrowed with a slight, almost comical panic. "I forgot my soap," I chuckled. "It's on the sink." "No, my special soap, the papaya one. I think it is in my small bag." I sat up and swung my legs over the side of the bed. Her small woven bag was on the chair in the corner. As I stood up, my foot brushed against something on the floor. It was her phone, lying face up where she must have dropped it on her way back to the bathroom. The screen was lit, and a message was displayed, a preview from a group chat. The sender was Tita Marisol. I couldn't see the whole conversation, just the last line. glowing in the dim light of the room. Remember, don't look him in the eyes for too long. It makes them think you're lying. The sentence hung in the air, short circuiting the quiet hum of the room. Remember, don't look him in the eyes for too long. It makes them think you're lying. It was such a strange, specific piece of advice, a stage direction, a line from a script I didn't know I was in. My first instinct was to rationalize. Tita Marisol, an aunt, overprotective, a blanket caution born of village gossip. It had to be. I reached for the phone, my hand trembling slightly. A moment ago, this would have been an unthinkable violation of the trust I had worked so hard to build. Now, it felt like self preservation. But just as my finger touched the glass, the screen went dark, the message disappearing. The moment was gone. The lock screen was a picture of us, smiling on a beach, a perfect digital facade. I found the papaya soap in her bag, a bright orange bar that smelled faintly of sugar, and handed it to her through the cracked bathroom door. "Here you go," I said, my voice sounding unnervingly normal. "Salamat, babe," she murmured, her hand reaching out. Her fingers were warm and soft. She didn't mention the phone. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, she was humming. She looked fresh, radiant, the very picture of uncomplicated joy. The contradiction was dizzying. I watched her as she moved about the room, pulling on a simple sundress, one I'd bought her. I remembered her reaction when I gave it to her, eyes wide with a gratitude that felt almost too big for the gesture. Was that real? The memory was already starting to feel corrupted. "You are quiet," she said, turning to face me. She was toweling her hair, her head tilted. "Is something wrong?" There it was, the opening. I saw a message. The words caught in my throat. What if I was wrong? What if I shattered this perfect thing over a misunderstanding? I would be the jealous, paranoid foreigner, the exact stereotype I was so desperate not to be. "Just thinking," I lied, forcing a smile. "About dinner. Where should I take my best girl tonight?" The shift was immediate. The concern on her face vanished, replaced by a dazzling smile. "Anything, as long as I am with you." It was the right answer, the perfect answer, and for the first time, it didn't land right. It felt practiced. As she finished getting ready, I started noticing other things, small things. The way her gestures of affection, a hand on my arm, a quick kiss on the cheek, seemed to happen whenever I grew quiet or looked particularly thoughtful. It felt less like spontaneous affection and more like maintenance, a subtle course correction. The way she'd sometimes pause, just for a second before answering a simple question, as if she was mentally reviewing a list of options. It was a pattern, a rhythm, and once I heard it, I couldn't unhear it. We went to a restaurant overlooking the city lights, the kind of place designed for tourists and special occasions. She was impeccable, attentive, charming, laughing in all the right places. She asked about my work, my family, my thoughts on the Philippines. But her questions felt like prompts, designed to keep me talking, to keep the focus on my world. When I tried to turn the conversation back to her life, her dreams beyond her family's needs, her answers became vague. She wanted to be successful. She wanted to help people. Later that night, the unease had coiled into a tight knot in my stomach. She was asleep beside me again, the picture of innocence, but the peace was gone. The silence was no longer comfortable. It was heavy with unspoken questions. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events, the message, the practiced perfection. It was like finding a single loose thread on a beautiful tapestry. You pull it, just a little, and suddenly you realize the whole thing might be designed to unravel. The image of her I'd so carefully constructed, the shy, reverent girl I was saving, was beginning to flicker, and in its place, a much more unsettling picture was starting to form. It took 2 days. 2 days of playing my part, of forced smiles and hollow laughter. I was the attentive boyfriend, the generous provider. I took her shopping. I listened to her stories about her family, now hearing the careful cadence of a well rehearsed script. The unease of the first night had metastasized into a cold, clinical obsession. I needed to see the playbook. The opportunity came on our last night. She was in the shower again, humming the same tune as before. This time, she'd left the phone on the bed, plugged into a portable charger. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, panicked bird. This was the point of no return. My hands were slick with sweat as I picked it up. It was unlocked. The group chat was easy to find. It wasn't hidden, it was pinned to the top. The name of the group was Family Blessings. The profile picture was a stock image of a dove. I opened it, and the world fell away. It was all there, weeks of it. Screenshots of our conversations, my own words staring back at me, circled and analyzed. My declarations of affection, my attempts at being culturally sensitive, my quiet moments of vulnerability, all were evidence submitted for review. A message from Lyra from a month ago. He is very quiet today. I think he is sad about his home. What should I do? The reply from Tita Marisol. Wear the yellow dress. He said you look like sunshine in it. And ask him about his job. Let him feel important. Another from Lyra. He wants to know what my dreams are. A different cousin replied. Good. It means he is thinking of the future. Say you want to start a small business. Something simple. A food stall. They like that. It shows you are humble but also have a plan. The scroll was a descent. I saw screenshots of bank transfers I had sent, followed by a flurry of praise and heart emojis. Good work, Lyra. Your mother will be so happy. Keep him happy. I wasn't her partner. I was a source of income, a project to be managed. The intimacy I had cherished as sacred was discussed with the detached pragmatism of a business strategy. Then I found it. The conversation from the day she dropped her phone. Lyra. It's hard sometimes. When he looks at me, I feel like he can see me thinking. Tita Marisol. This is the most important part. The performance must be perfect when you are close. Let him think he is earning your trust. He is not. You are earning his. Another cousin. Act shy but grateful. They love that. Makes them feel like they are the first, the only one. Tita Marisol. Remember, don't look him in the eyes for too long. It makes them think you're lying. The air left my lungs. The entire foundation of my new life, the realness I had clung to, was a meticulously constructed lie. The shyness wasn't hers, it was a costume. The gratitude wasn't a feeling, it was a tool. I thought I held all the power, the older, wiser man with the world at his feet, bestowing his affection on a grateful young woman. The truth was, I never had any power at all. I was the one being managed, my loneliness and my ego, the levers they pulled with expert precision. She wasn't the one being saved. I was the one being harvested. I put the phone back on the bed, placing it exactly as I'd found it. The hiss of the shower stopped. I lay down and stared at the ceiling, the fan blades turning, slicing the thick, silent air. The scent of coconut and sweat was no longer the smell of peace. It was the smell of labor. Her labor. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, smiling, her face a mask of radiant innocence, I felt nothing. No anger, no rage, just a profound, bottomless emptiness. The woman I thought I knew didn't exist. She never had. I was in love with a committee, a strategy, a ghost created in a group chat. The quiet hum of the air conditioner, the soundtrack to my private paradise, now sounded like the mocking laughter of a world I had been too arrogant to see. I didn't move. I lay there, a hollowed out space in the shape of a man, and watched her walk out of the steam. She was smiling, that same soft smile that had once felt like my own personal sunrise. Now I could see the architecture beneath it, the slight tension in her jaw, the way her eyes scanned me, assessing my mood. She was at work. "You are quiet," she said, her voice a practiced melody of concern. It was her opening move, the gentle probe to see if the asset required maintenance. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. I saw the performer. I saw the exhaustion she must have felt, the sheer grinding effort of maintaining this illusion for a man who desperately wanted to believe it. The anger I expected to feel wasn't there. In its place was a strange, cold clarity, like looking through glass instead of a mirror. I saw the game. "Just thinking," I said, and the lie came easily. I had learned from the master. "About how I'm going to miss this." The relief that washed over her was nearly imperceptible, but I saw it. The script was back on track. She crossed the room and curled up beside me, her head on my chest. I felt the weight of her, the warmth of her skin. It was a physical fact devoid of the meaning I had once assigned to it. I put my arm around her, a reflex. She sighed, a perfect little sound of contentment. It was a masterful performance. I had to admire it. I was lying next to a professional, someone so skilled at her job that her work was indistinguishable from art. The next morning, I was up before the sun. I moved quietly, packing my bag in the grey pre-dawn light. She was still asleep, her face peaceful. The mask was down. This perhaps was the only real version of her I had ever seen. On the nightstand next to her phone, I placed the rest of my cash. It was a thick stack, more than I had ever given her at once. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't a final act of kindness. It was a severance payment, the only truly honest transaction we had ever had. I looked at her one last time, this girl who had been the star of my private fantasy, the hero, the savior, the one in control. I had come here believing I was rewriting her life story. I closed the door quietly behind me. I had been wrong. I wasn't the author. I was just the subject.